mission. You are always reminding the audience of the why. And if you get a chance, there's a writer named Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, in the U.S. Actually, he's Canadian, sorry. And Simon has written a book about the why and understand why. If you can get why firm in your head, your job as a candidate is to repeat it 20, 30 times a day in different ways. Constantly explain, why are we doing this? Why is it important? So that idea of the clarity of message. The one way to get to the clarity of message for you is to answer 3 questions. And the 3 questions are this: who am I? My values. What do I stand for? And by the way, if you haven't written this down, you should write it down. Who are you? What do you stand for? The second question is, what do you do to embody those values? How do you live your life? And by the way, do not be self-deluded. Be truthful. Do you really live your values? Write that down as well. And then the third question is, why does all of this really matter? And this gets to the issue of why, gets to the issue of the nobility of the cause. Give me a nobility. The way to get to why, by the way, is this idea of asking 5 whys. Think like a child. Ask, so why is that important? So why is that important? So why is that important? Do it 5 times, and you'll land on the proper noble why. This is your number 1 job as a leader, is to own the why and to constantly voice it. You have to voice it all day long. So that's number 1. Second thing is this: embrace ambiguity. Embrace the idea of being an improvisational leader. Know that, yes, you build a plan, but that plan will change the minute action begins. So the minute you plan with your team on what we're going to do, but the minute you hit the campaign trail, and you probably have learned this already, everything changes. You walk into a room thinking that they care about 1, 2, 3, and then you discover they don't. Live in ambiguity, embrace improvisation. It's a critical element of leadership today. Feel good about it. Don't be upset by it. Now, that doesn't mean you accept mess. It doesn't mean you accept deficiency. It doesn't mean you accept incompetence. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, be flexible in the moment. So clarity of message and why, ambiguity, be flexible and improvise, right? And then third thing is, and this is really important, we don't do this enough, but as a candidate, you have to do this, and that is this: celebrate. Celebrate wins. As you start moving toward the mission, find reasons to celebrate with the team, with yourself, with your voters, with the clientele. People like to vote for winners. Keep educating them that we're winning, that we're learning, that we're growing, that something magical is happening. This idea of celebrating is critically important for candidacy. Imagine, if you will, and this goes for startups, you are a part of a candidacy. You are ostensibly a part of a bandwagon. I am a voter standing on the side watching a parade go by. When I see your bandwagon come by, I have to be excited by it. I have to sense something's happening. And the best way to do that is celebrate. Show me what you're doing. Let's celebrate the why, the clarity of message. You are flexible in the moment, and you celebrate. So that's your behavior in being that type of leader, that type of startup founder, that candidate. Does this make sense? Is this working for you? And we'll keep going. We'll start hitting some skills as well. One thing I want to make sure I touch on really quickly. We live in a very interesting moment in time. And I say this as someone who's been involved in politics and startups since I was 22. Actually, when I was 17, I ran my first campaign. The audience is different today than it's ever been before, largely because of historical events, yes, largely because we've been enlivened, particularly on the labor side. You've got amazing constituencies who are really awakened now to basically a new world, and they're realizing there's consequences in the vote, right? And here's how I identify them. I think there's 3 things about this audience that's different. The first one is the people that you talk to, they need to be heard. They expect you to listen, expect you to hear their point of view. Do not brush by that. Give them a full hearing. So when you're meeting with voters, this idea of fully listening, it's critically important. Give them the honor and the respect of, I hear you. That's got to be there. So do that in any way you can. You do it with your eyes, and when we get into physical, you do that act. The second thing is that for this audience is they've got to know they're having impact. Got to feel like that by voting for you, something is going to happen. If they don't feel that, they're not going to vote for you. So understand its voice, its impact, and then the third thing is they've got to feel like that they're a part of something, a community. And so this idea of mission is really critical. You probably have already figured that out if you've been on the trail at all. It's idea of voice, impact, community. This is a really big part of this new audience. Okay, now, so here's how I want you to think about your leadership. Put it again, and you're going to notice I keep going 3. This idea of 3. Everything I do is I do that, if you've noticed that. So in this idea of you as a leader, think in terms of 3 categories. There's your philosophy, which gets into the why and the mission and all that, and your values, right? The second piece of that is the structure. And this gets into the logic, the structure, how you use your time, how you use your team's time. And many of you are business people. You know you have some models that you use. It doesn't even matter what the model is. Develop a structure. I have all kinds of logics that I use. But just have a structure, a logic. And by the way, think of the idea of ambiguity, change it. Be okay with moving it around. But have a structure and a logic that your team understands, that you understand. We have a plan, we have a roadmap, we have clarity of what we're doing. I know I'm going to spend my time today. I'm going to focus on these versus that. You just make those kind of priority decisions and make it very clear. And then the third part of this is skills. And these are the basic skills that I'm now going to run through with you of leadership, okay? So you got your philosophy, those 3 questions. Who am I? What do I do? Why does it matter? This idea of humanity, right? The idea of being a learner versus a knower. All of those, that's philosophy. Structure is how you use your time, the structure of your campaign, the roadmap, this constituency, the categories of constituencies, the places where you go. When I did my campaign, we did a grid, and we laid the grid out over the entire district, the entire constituency, and we worked those very carefully. And I'm sure that's what you're doing. And you've got great tools for those kinds of grids and those kinds of tools. So, and then I noticed Mindy's, by the way, asked this question, how else can you keep morale high with your team? If you are constantly reminding them of the mission and you're celebrating the great things that they're doing and you're coming and appreciating them. And by the way, in expressing appreciation, don't make it general. Don't just go, you're doing a great job. Get specific. Say Susan, when you did this with that voter, I was really impressed. I love the way you talk. If you want to keep morale high with your team, keep reminding them of the mission. They're doing a lot of drudgery work, as you know. They're sealing envelopes. They're making phone calls. They're knocking on doors. I get all that. Get specific with them and congratulate them and say thank you for things that they do that are specific. Do that all day long. When you come into the room, I know you're under stress. You're trying to raise money. You're running out of money. Maybe the signs are misprinted. I get it. All of those things happen, but your job is to be on stage and for your team, always come in that room fully engaged with them. They need to be heard. They need to feel engaged, and they need to feel that they are a part of a community that cares. And you are the missionary. You are the high priest, the high priestess. Know that they have that role. So if you need to have outlets for frustration, find people that you can yell at. But don't do that in the big room, and don't do that with your team. Make sure your team sees you as this passionate, positive, I'm going to win, make me feel good leader, right? Okay, just taking a quick look and see if there's any questions here. Okay, there's a question on structuring time. Listen, I'm a believer that any structure, it doesn't really matter what the structure is, but get your priorities straight. I live this way. I have 3 layers. My top layer is what are the 3 things that I just got to be focused on, and I write them down somewhere. And those 3 things are what I fixate about every single day. Below that, I have something called dependencies. And there's a group of things that are related to that. I try to find ways to delegate it. I find owners. I find time frames, and then I find outcomes within that category. And there's a whole category of things in which I really make the decision, can't do them. Just can't do them. And I let them go. And so every day I look, well, what's my top priorities? my dependencies, delegate, owners, time frame, and then there's a whole bunch of things that I let go. Remember this, you're working against physics. There's far too much to do in a day. There's far too much work to be done in an 8, 12, 15-hour day. You've got to give that up. You can't be upset by that. That's that idea of ambiguity and being flexible, right, in the moment. So that may not be the best answer, but it's just get organized, be clear on what you're trying to do. Don't let things distract you. If you are distracted, be polite, hand them off to people. Get owner as much as you possibly can. Get members of your team. And I know you're dealing with volunteers. I know it's hard. Lean on them. Find great volunteers. Find the conscientious ones, the ones that are accountable. Lean on them heavily. It's a campaign. It's a mission. They're going to be okay. They want to be a part of the mission. Brian Chesky at Airbnb, who I've worked with for like years, Brian would always say that when people are tired, when people think they're burnt out, they actually aren't. The problem is the mission isn't big enough. The mission isn't inspiring enough. And at first I questioned him on that. I thought that's not right. But I've watched him do it as he's built Airbnb up to a $30, $40 billion business. And the truth is he's right. It's not true for everyone, but think in terms of give them a new mission. Get something to inspire them. That's how you move things really forward. And then just have a logic for how you're doing the work. And then you as a candidate, stay focused on the important things. Have somebody help you with that structure. In my case, I have Mindy. So Mindy makes sure that I'm not doing stupid things. And I lean on that very heavily. So make sure that you do that, okay? Okay, somebody just said they can't hear again. So am I now, I just redid my mic to make sure. Somebody just confirm. I'm seeing 2 people say they can't hear again. Is it confirm if I can be heard or not? Mindy, if you would mind too, let me know. And then I'm going to get into the skills of this. Okay, so I'm hoping we can still hear. If you cannot hear me, let me type. Okay, let me know if you can hear me or not. I don't want to continue unless you can truly hear me. Oh no, I'm not seeing anybody confirm that you can hear me. Oh, you're saying I can't hear you. Okay, I'm going to continue then. I'm going to assume that some can't, but you can. Okay, great. Okay, hopefully this is helpful so far. We've got the foundation of the learnings. We've got the foundation of leadership. We've got some of the behaviors that you need to follow, right? Now let's get into specific skills. All right. Now, I've been doing this idea of message. Let's start with message. I want you to do something, and this is going to sound odd. This might be American, by the way, but whenever you're asked a question, even particularly the hard questions, I want you to consider this idea. The minute you're asked a hard question, use these words. When I think of that topic, it comes down to 3 things. Now, you may not know what the 3 things are. Your brain will find them. So no matter what the topic is, just simply say, you know, when I think about how we're doing the medical system right now, or when I hear about this debate about the Americans coming in and buying our medical service, it comes down to 3 things. Why do that? The mind of the receiver, if they hear the logic of how you're about to form the message, it really helps in how they receive it. Be careful speaking in paragraphs. Speak format. So if I say there are really 3 things, and then I go 1, 3, it helps the receiver to take that message. The reason why that's important is brain science has taught us that if I said there's 4 things, by the time I get to the 4th one, the human brain actually forgets what 1 was. If I said there's 2 things, the human brain assumes that there's more. And no brain scientist knows why this is true. They just know it to be true. This crosses over cultures. It crosses over boundaries, nationalities. It just seems to be something true with the human brain. So the idea of a message is get your ideas down to 1, 2, 3. Always want to roll everything up to 1, 2, 3. Even if you have a 10-point plan, try to make it have a logic around a 1, 2, 3. Whatever you have to do in your message, make it simple. The audience then can hear it. And then here's what you do. You basically Tony Blair it. You repeat it 20 times, 30 times a day. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is essential to messaging. This is what people say by staying on message. This is the concept of messaging. Now, I'm going to give you a format for presentations, though. Okay, so this is messaging. So remember the 1, 2, 3, right? Then, by the way, you can look this up on the web under something called the power of 3, if you ever just want to study it. And you may already know this, but really adopt this. This is hard for smart people. People go, it should be more. It's not. You're speaking to people who have lives. You're speaking to people who are busy. Your candidacy is one part of what they're dealing with in their life. They're dealing with their children. They're dealing with their grandparents or their parents getting old. They're dealing with, paychecks and jobs. And they're dealing with very serious issues. You step into their life, you better be simple about what you're trying to get across, or they're not going to hear you. So 1, 2, 3. But now here's a format for presentation. It goes like this. And this presentation has 3 steps to it. Don't you like this? Everything is 3. But the first one is this. If I'm making a presentation, when I start the presentation, I will first explain the situation. So just simply explain the situation. Brexit. Currently in a very tough situation where we have the party split, we have Labor definitely split and opposing what's currently happening with the Prime Minister. Don't make that first step an argument. The situation is not to be an argument. It is to be what is known. Make the whole audience, this is what we know. Step 2, what is the complication with this? And so it might be something after you set up what the known on Brexit is. Here's the known, right? Complication is this, though. We're under a severe constraint in which that time constraint is going to make us make a mistake that will have historical impact that will absolutely destroy the economy of Great Britain, right? The complexity of that. What is the consequences, if you will, of that situation? And make that as spicy as you can so that the audience, they snap their heads a little bit when they do that. And then the third one is either you present a solution or you can ask a rhetorical question. So what does this mean for us in labor? What does this mean for this candidacy? What does this mean for Britain going into the future? Whatever that is, find a question or present the solution. So think of those 3 steps. So anytime you stand up to do a stump, you're going to stand up and talk, do situation, complication, and then the question or an answer to go to it. This falls into the category of storytelling. One of the mistakes we make is we stand up and we say things like, my name is, I want to talk to you about, right? If you really want to get an audience, start with a story. On my way here, as I was coming into this constituency, I saw a woman had a very interesting talk with her. That storytelling at the very top of a conversation or very top of a talk is very powerful. Put it into the situation, and then complication of that, and then the question and the solution. That's the messaging. Now, I trust that many of you may already know that, but just to make sure we're on the same page, how you message is critically important. Keep it simple. Keep repeating the same thing. Try not to muddle it. And if you're going to muddle it, say it out loud. Say, by the way, if you don't mind, let me talk a little bit about this because I know this is going to be complex, or I'm going to get into, a bit into the trenches a little bit here, but bear with me. Ask permission to go deep. Fight the urge, talking in paragraphs. It's a real mistake. The mind goes away, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so that's the message. The second thing is this, audience. You need to make sure that you're thinking about the audience from their perspective, not from yours. One of the big mistakes we make when we're a candidate is we walk out into the world with our own agenda, and we forget what they care about. So anytime you're walking into an audience, a constituency, you want to always ask the question, who are they? What do they care about? And why would they care about what I have to say? And what does it matter? Find out what that is. Get somebody on your campaign to actually even share this. Say, what do they care about? Right? Now, this does not mean to be vanilla and only say what they want to hear. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying understand their perspective. and then walk in the room with that perspective. And if you're really good, you do your format in the situation, speak to their reality in that situation. Speak to what they care about. Then you can throw in the complication, and then your question solution can now be your agenda. But make sure that you're getting what they care about first. One of the biggest mistakes we make as candidates is we are so in our own little scribble, our own little world, that we forget who we're talking to. So be very, very careful. Always remember who the audience is. You ask the question, what do they care about? You ask the question, why should they care? Don't ever dodge that. So you have your message, you have your audience, and then on engaging, it's this. Remember this lesson, folks. This is really important. When you meet a voter, it is not what you say to them, it's how you make them feel. It's not what you say to them, it's how you make them feel. The voters are going to vote for you, not by the, that I stand for these positions. That's not what they're going to vote for you on. They're going to vote because you made them feel something. You made them feel good about you. You made them feel good about the message, but it's feeling. And the way to do that is this in the engagement. It's how you listen to them. When you meet with a voter, your eyes are really important. Fully engage them with your eyes. Do not talk without looking at people's eyes. Fight the urge of talking, to the ground, to the ceiling, or anything. Only talk to eyes whenever you're out. That's the feeling part. Listen to them. And if you're really good, repeat back what they said. So let me understand you quickly. What you're saying is, say it back to them. Then that goes to the issue of being heard, the idea of voice. They now feel like you heard them. They feel that. It's really important. That handshake, firm, right? If you can double handshake, that's good. Reach up and grab the elbow. That is really good, right? Don't be afraid to truly engage them in that way. Your eyes, though, are the critical component of that engagement. And here's how you're in an audience, or if you're with one-on-one and you're in front of a Q&A, lean on questions that you may ask back for clarity that begin with the words how and what. Fight any question that begins with why. Like, don't go, why would you say that? Because it puts them on defensive. How would you see that happening? Assuming we did that, what would you see happen next? Lean on how and what questions. Whenever you can, repeat back what they said to you. That is what is termed as active listening. Many of you in your careers, you probably have gone through some courses on this. Remember the simplicity of that. Engage with eyes, hear them, repeat back, and then if you have to ask questions, begin with how and what. You may have to ask why. If you ask why, this might be an American thing, but start with the words, just curious. Just curious, why would you think that? Soften it a little bit. So that's the engaging part of it. Now, the presentation side. When I'm now standing in front of an audience, here are the presentation skills physically, okay? And there's three things. I know you love this three things. Eyes, energy, and then your body. Your body holds itself, right? The eyes are this. You simply only talk to eyes. And if you're really good, you go from one pair of eyes to another on punctuation. Move from one pair of eyes on a comma, period, or a transition. If you're really good, when you hit a transition, or you camp the transition on that new pair of eyes. So if I said, I really like red, blue, and white, you camp the transition. Great politicians that you respect actually are really good with their eyes. The eyes are the critical component of presenting in front of an audience. Fight the urge of looking over people's heads and fight the urge of scanning the audience like that. Don't do that. Stop. Really look, engage to a period, comma, transition, and then move to another pair of eyes. Only talk to eyes. On energy, it's simply this. In front of an audience, make your voice louder with the size of the room. Energy is about how loud you are. So for somebody my age, the louder I am, the more animated my face is. The more I get up on my toes a little bit. The more my hands go where they need to go. So use your volume as a tool for showing passion, for showing that I really care. Now don't overdo it. So if you're in a smaller room, you're just slightly louder, but don't overdo it. So this takes practice, and then just as you go, your arms will get wider. The larger the room, the wider your arms. The smaller the room, the closer they're in. So play your arms and your voice to the size of the audience and the size of the room, right? So combine that with your eyes. It's very powerful. And then with the body, don't do things distract. Try not to have things in your hand. Try not to be standing behind a podium. Step out in front of a podium whenever you can. If you have a sound person in the room, make them adjust to your volume. Don't become what we call in the U.S. FM, which is, like I'm a jazz station because I'm now talking. Don't do that. Be still animated. Let the audio person adjust to you. Do not have anything in your way between you and the voter. So your body has to be as open as possible. Walk to the edge of a stage. Walk the stage. Hold their eyes, right? When you're really going to make point, stand still. So you can move on transitions, but stand still when you're going to make a point. Now, I hope this makes sense. It's eyes, it's energy, volume, and it's this idea of using the body. Think of this like a sport. Don't overthink this. Everything I've said so far is very hard for smart people. The dumb people, sadly, particularly in America, the dumb people get this quick. And that's why we have a problem with leaders politically in the U.S., might be true in Great Britain as well. Stupid people get this stuff pretty quick. Smart people don't. My mission in life is to teach smart people the simple skills so we can put smart people in the big. That's you. So that's why we're here. So hopefully that makes sense, okay? Now, the thing is this on the skills, and I'm looking at my time, and then we can open up to any questions you might have as well. Double checking. I hear you're dealing with nerves. Let me touch on that real quick. First of all, nerves are a very positive thing. If you are nervous in front of an audience, consider that a gift. Nature has given you a gift, and the gift is nervousness. Like for me, here I am talking to you. I am nervous. I'm nervous stepping into this to talk to you. And I'm nervous because I'm thinking, am I going to bring value here? Am I doing something good for these labor candidates? Am I going to do something of value? That is where my nerves are, right? So nervousness is a great thing. The way you get through nervousness is twofold. One is focus on the other people. The reason you're nervous is because you care about what they think of you. You're being too, like, what do you think of me? Do you like me? Do you like me, right? If you notice what I do is I don't think about you liking me. I think in terms of, am I helping you? Am I providing value, right? What I want you to do before you step on the stage is saying, what I'm about to say, is this going to work for them? Is this what they need to hear? Does this speak to their needs? Really focus on that. Every time I get up on a stage, I say these words to myself on the edge of the stage, and that is this. I always go, it's not about me. Now, that's my mechanism for me. It's not about me, right? And then the second thing is this. For nerves, all you have to do is raise your voice. If you find yourself, getting nervous or you're losing your breath, raise your voice. You'll be amazed what that does to cleanse your nervousness. Whatever you do, do not do the games of saying things like, everybody in the audience is naked. Don't do that. That just makes it worse. Focus on this idea of others. It's not about me, it's about them. And then focus on it's a physical problem. And the louder you are, the more you'll purge out that nervous energy that's forcing you to breathe from up here versus breathing from down below in your diaphragm. It's what singers do. If you really want to do something really cool when you're on the side of a stage, put your hand below your feet and breathe. And make sure that your hand is getting pushed out. And that makes sure that you physiologically are breathing down below, not from up here. Nervousness makes you breathe from up here, which then makes it worse. Raising your voice, being louder, purges you of that nervousness to a certain degree. Nature gives you a gift, and that gift is nervousness. It allows you to come to the game, on the edge a little bit, and that's important. The audience deserves they deserve you being nervous. They deserve you a little bit being on the edge because that's what's required that they need, and it's frankly what you need to meet what they need. Does that make sense? So I hope that got you, that can give you what you need on the nervousness. Okay. The last thing is this, and this is a media skill. This is all my skills. So my skills being message, audience, how to engage through active listening, presentation, eyes, energy, body. The last one is this, and it's under media. I do a lot of media training in which I teach founders. Get this, I've for 10, 15 years, I have trained every director and every producer of every Pixar film and every Lucasfilm. Now, what a privilege that has been. You can imagine what that's like teaching artists how to deal with media, because they just don't want to do that, right? But here's the lesson I've learned. Now, there's a bunch of things about media. You know, number one, they're not out to get you. They're out to get a story. So don't look at it defensively. No, they're just looking for a story. So give them a story. Think in terms of what do they need for this article. It's not just that you're running for office. That's not enough. There's got to be something important here that they want to publish. So all they care about is they're looking for a story. Tabloids aside, Murdoch aside, put that aside. In general, most reporters are out to do a good thing. They want to get a good story. So don't demonize them. Don't think them as bad. Think of them as partners in getting your message out. So partner with them. Provide a great story. And here's the tool that I want you to write down. It's called Pivot. Pivot is this. If they ask you a question that's off your message, so you have your 1, 2, 3 message, and they ask you a question, the most common question is they ask your opponent, right? They go, so what do you think of Sharon Little? And when they ask that question, what I want you to do is never disparage your opponent. You say things like, I can't really speak to what Sharon's doing in her campaign, but what I can tell you, and that's the pivot. I can't speak to that, but what I can tell you. I can't speak to, that question. I can't speak to that Brexit issue. I can't speak to what the Prime Minister's doing. I can't speak to what the Conservatives are doing. But what I can tell you is, go back to your 1, 2, 3. So the pivot is, I can't speak to that, but what I can tell you, right? I don't really have an opinion on that, but what I can tell you. Pivot them away from their agenda. Reporters are looking for something. They want you to get off your rails. They want you to get off message. Don't let them do that. Take themselves back to your pivot. Now, another way to do that is you can give them a short answer. Well, there's no question that's regrettable, and I'm sad to hear that happened. But for me, I pivot right back to your main agenda. So the idea is pivot. Never be a victim to a reporter's question. They're not in control of the interview. You are. Control the interview. Know that they have to have a story. Give them a story, right? But don't let them control the interview. They ask these questions. They're going to ask some really dumb questions or some personal questions. They're going to ask you questions that are, totally take you off your rails. Just show them respect, but then pivot back to what you really want to talk about. I can't really speak to that, but what I can tell you, right? And that is called the pivot. In media skills, we practice this in the Q&A. So if you're really good, get somebody on your team to ask you the question you don't ever want to be asked. Make them ask you the most rude, inappropriate questions you could possibly imagine, and then practice the pivot. Practice a way of doing it. Do not indulge the question unless you want to indulge it, and unless by indulging it, it enhances your mission, enhances your message. So remember, in media, you control it, not the reporter. Okay? Now, another thing to do with media is this. Always begin the interview with your 1, 2, 3. Whatever your message is, no matter what they ask in the very first question, answer with your 1, 2, 3. And no matter what they ask at the very end, go back to your 1, 2, 3. People listen this way. They listen, if they're listening at a level, they listen like this at the very beginning, and the more you talk, the less they listen, and then near the end, they listen again. The two most powerful moments in any interview is going to be the very first word you say and the very last word you say. Use them wisely. I hope that makes sense. Let me look at what people are asking here. Okay, yeah. When a reporter consistently pushes on a specific question and you're pivoting, how do you handle that? Here's what I do. And this is going to sound, this may be American, so bear with me. But if a reporter comes back to me twice on the same question, and I pivoted, and they come back a third time, I will do this. I'll say, Jim, can we stop for a second? I mean, it sounds like you really want to know, or you're really curious about, my position on Brexit. And I've just answered you that I really go there. That's not, I don't even have a point of view on that. What are you looking for? turn it around on them. Make them say something to you. What that does is they may reveal their agenda. Because generally when a reporter's coming back, what's happened is this. They either have something in their belly that's telling them that there's something here and they're going to pursue you, or a producer or an editor has said to them, we think this is happening in their campaign, push on that, right? So just try to get them to uncover it. So you stop and you go, can we stop for a second? The sense I get is that you really want to know something that I don't know anything about, but tell me what you're looking for. What do you need? Remember, partner with them. Don't go to war with them. Help them. And then they'll reveal what they're really looking for. Does that make sense? So whatever you do, don't engage it. Whatever you do, pivot away from it. So even if he comes back and gives you an explanation, say, I hear you and I appreciate that, but you know what? I can't really speak to that, but what I can tell you, you're right into it. You just have to stay with it. When people talk about staying on message, this is what they mean. Staying on message is my ability to pivot every time. And I'm just not going to go away from it. But do it with respect. Do it, don't do it with blind eyes. Do it understanding that they have a need. Okay, great. All right, so those are the skills that I wanted to touch base with you on. The triangle, this idea of 1, 2, 3, engaging, the audience, presentation, and media. Okay? Now, for this entire thing, that is the meat of what I wanted to cover with you. Now, I wanted to just do this last couple of minutes, and we have any other questions, you can pipe them in there. One of the biggest, and you may already know this, but it's something I learned in my campaign. People want to help you. It's one of the greatest privileges in life that people have. They want to help you. People want to help. Give them that opportunity to help you. So don't be afraid to ask for their money. Don't be afraid to ask for their vote. Don't be afraid to ask for them to volunteer for you. Make the mission very clear. Make the need and what we're trying to do in this mission very clear, and invite them in. Now, objection is going to be a big piece of this. You're going to get a lot of no's. But here's what great salespeople, in the sense you're selling yourself, you're selling a campaign. Great salespeople know that what you want to do is gather a whole ton of no's. The more no's you get, the closer you get to a yes. So don't be afraid to ask for money. Don't be afraid to ask for votes. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask. And the no's are okay. The no's are good. The no's get you to the yeses. I guess that's my last piece of advice to you is you're doing a great thing. Running for an office position it's basically what you're doing is you're getting out of the stands of the sporting event and you're jumping on the field. Every person respects that. They can't believe that you're willing to have the courage to do that. So it's stunning. Give people the opportunity to help the player on the field. Do not be afraid of picking the phone and asking for money. Don't be afraid of asking for votes. Don't be afraid of asking for help. No's are a good thing. I hope it helps you on that. Okay? We can, I see a question here. How do you bounce back from a defeat? Okay, listen, there are no defeats. There's only learning. I know that sounds American, but the truth of the matter is the great lessons in life that we learn are our failures. We learn very little from when we win. We just don't learn. We learn from failures. We learn from defeat. So every time a defeat happens, something bad happens, step back and go, what did I learn from this? What's going to be different? And you share that with your team. You share that with your voters. You say, look, this happened. It's bad. This hurt. Be vulnerable in that defeat. But then go right to the learnings. This was a huge opportunity. We tried this. We failed. Here's what we learned. 1, 2, 3. Keep coming back. The great leaders bounce back fast with one caveat. Give your team time to grieve. Don't rush the grieving too much. Let them go through that 7 stages of grief. It's important. But get them through it and then get to learnings. So the best way to bounce back from failure is you simply go, God, that was bad. Grieve, yes, we've got to go through this. At the end of it, here's what we learned. Here's how we grew. Here's how we're better because of the defeat. Remember, lessons are learned from defeat. They're not learned from winning. You know this in life. The people that you know that have won their whole life, my God, they walk the earth blind. I feel sorry for them. It's like, good for you. You're rich, you have all that, but you've learned nothing. People that have faced adversity, have faced failure, they're extraordinary people. that have learned have bounced back, right? So bounce back, teach your team how to bounce back from that. Do you think leaning on shared values is a sensible? Of course. Lean on shared values always. Find a way to find commonality in values. Here's good news. As human beings, we have shared values, actually. That's why that idea of having this foundation, these moral foundations. Look at the moral foundation on the web. Look at that. We're actually more alike than we're not. So find those shared values and then express them as shared values. Just make them authentic. And if you can tie them to your life experience and tell that life story, one caveat on your life story, don't make it all sound clean. Don't make it sound too polished. Make it sound where there's been bumps in this road. Make it, great storytelling has two things. It has a surprise in the story, and it has a reversal. Every great story has a surprise near the top of the story and has a reversal near the end. If you look up the 8 steps of story, and you'll see these stories. You are storytellers as candidates. Tell great stories and tell the ones that have that grittiness in them. They're not perfect. You didn't, you're bone poor and all that. Don't make it sound too easy. No, this was hard. My mom and I had this happen. When we did this, I made this mistake. I learned that, right? Give it grit, because that's what people hang on to. They hang on to stories that feel like me. And that's what you want to do when you tell the story. So shared values is really important. Okay. Now we're coming up against the hour. Are there any other questions before we close out? And I want to say to you, this is a privilege for me to be able to, as an American, to talk to you. I don't get a chance to really engage with you live. I wish I did. I hope this has been helpful, but this has been my privilege and my honor. And thank you for even listening to anything that this American's blathering on about. I wish you a lot of luck in your campaigns. If you need me in any way outside of this thing, I'm available. It's one thing, my gift and thing in life is of service. And so what I'm about. So if you need help, I'm glad to be talked to. And Chloe and team have my email address as well. Okay, here are my thoughts on the best ways to effectively use and structure time to build a movement. I don't know if I can go back to the idea of structuring time is it comes down to you have to make decisions of what you're not going to do. Time management is, particularly if you're mission oriented like I am, I think I can do everything, then you can't. Physics works against you. So time management and being focused on the right things and building a movement it's the simplicity of message, it's focusing on the right things, it's using your time effectively on those right things, and it's what you say no to that probably matters more than what you say yes to. And if you say no to something important, delegate it. Find somebody to own it for you. But how you master your time and use your time. Great leaders are masters in how they use their time. Be that leader. Be disciplined about how you use your time, right? Okay. All right, great. I tell you what, I'll give you your time back. I'll give you 5 minutes back. Chloe and team, are we good? I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm available seriously to talk to any of you if you need to one-on-one. All right? Thank you, guys. We'll say bye at this point.